everybody. Oh, let's get this over here. Hello, how are you all doing this evening? I hope you're all doing very, very, very well. It's a little bit chill here. I think it's a little bit cold here. So there we go. Jimmy James starting us off. Yeah. So anyway, there we are. There we are. Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren, for all of those of you in Germany. I think that's it. Everyone else is either British or American, I think somewhere along those lines. Anyway, today's a very exciting day, I think, anyway. I mean, they're always exciting, aren't they? But today is a wonderful, wonderful day for, well, for some people. For some people, it's a wonderful day. I think for some people it's a wonderful day. All right, so we definitely have your questions that you will be asking, hopefully. If you've got a role-playing game and you have some questions that have been plaguing you, now is the time to ask them. Just write the word question in caps in front of that, please, so that I can see it nice and easy. As you can see, Lance Pickett has done just that. So there we go. I can see that question straight away. Now, if I don't answer your question, it means that I've missed it, because you can see they scroll through quite quickly. I am streaming to Twitch and to YouTube at the same time. So sometimes I do come through quite quickly. And if I don't answer it, just ask it again. So there we are. Right, so kicking us off, Lance Pickett's question was, when doing a game based on the surviving and hopefully rebuilding of a post-apocalyptic game, how much should be given to time in the disaster, surviving the disaster before the actual game of rebuilding? It seems that it would be 3 different campaign worlds, or at least settings. So, Lance Pickett, you are jumping the gun by a week. Next week, Friday, the release for How to Be a Great GM is on Post-Apocalyptic Games. I kid you not. There is a new RPG that's going into Kickstarter. And they approached us. They approached Nerdarchy. They've reached out to all of the usual YouTube influencers. It's what you do these days when you're running a Kickstarter. And they sent me the rules, and the rules are fantastic for a post-apocalyptic game. They really are fantastic. So I decided to do an entire episode on how to run a post-apocalyptic game. What I did not cover was your particular question, so I'm glad that you asked that. So if you are doing a gigantic event, like an apocalypse, you are right. It is 3 different campaigns, and I think that's what you should look at it as, is ask your players, do they want to start before, in the middle of, or after? Because that's always an interesting space. In the middle of is terrifying. You're in the middle of this apocalypse. So I would ask them and tell them that you present them with options. So either they can do the entire thing, which is a long form campaign, which I think is great. Or that you want to do the build up, and then they will create new characters for the actual event and then new characters for surviving the event. I mean, that could be equally interesting and fascinating to see how they survive and that sort of thing. So I would ask them first and say, where do you want to start? So I'm going to be announcing that I will be running a new game for patrons to apply for, to participate with me. I'm doing the one-on-one with Brian on Wednesdays. But I want to run a game every second Friday, which might be recorded, might not be recorded, but it's really just for fun. And I will be basing that in a setting that I have chosen, which has the exact same question. Pre the apocalypse, or post the apocalypse. And it happens over 80 or 90 years, give or take, or potentially even more than that. But generally speaking, it's over 80 or 90 years. And so my campaign will not be choose to start at the beginning and then run all the way through to the end. It is only 4 sessions. It's a 4-session campaign. So it's not very long. Each of the sessions, we'll see how long those will be. But it's about the choice and presenting to them with a choice and telling them what's going to be in that choice. So if it's building up to the apocalypse, that is the discovery of the countdown bomb, really. It is the, oh my God, the world's core is slowing down. We need to speed it up. Awful premise, great movie. I was thoroughly entertained by that movie, The Core. But it was about trying to stop it and then failing to stop it and having it happen. So that's the rush. It's the adrenaline rush, that discovery. It's all those kind of opportunities. The actual apocalypse itself is surviving it. So that's something like, what was that film that The Rock was in, Dwight Johnson was in, with the fault line that cracked open? It was fairly recent that it came out. It was a rubbish disaster movie. But anyway, it's the disaster movie. The San Andreas. There we go. San Andreas. Thank you. 10 points, T-Cats. San Andreas. So, or 2012, that other wonderful movie. So anyway, the disaster film is all about surviving the disaster, and that's lots of fun. And then obviously post-apocalyptic is the post-apocalypse. So yeah, I would have a look at that. If you're not starting immediately, I would advise waiting until next week when you can have a look at this Kickstarter for this Apocalypse RPG. I must admit, I really was blown away by it. Now they paid us to do the promo. You know, oh, look at this new thing. It's brilliant. It's wonderful. It's marvelous. But I was so impressed by it that I went, I've got to dedicate a whole video to doing Apocalypse because it's really, really, really cool. The system is just easy and it makes sense. And I explained it to my housemate, and the economy within it, he's like, oh my God, that's so painful because it's brilliant. He's been trying to design an Apocalypse game for a long time. And he's like, but that solves all the problems. I love it. I wish I could have invented it for my own game. But anyway, so there you are. Independence Day was a Survive the Apocalypse. It was a wonderful Survive the Apocalypse. Well, it was prelude to the potential apocalypse, which obviously didn't happen, but there you are. Okay. Okay, so the game will start in October. Brilliant. So you have time to see this Kickstarter and see what you can get there. Okay. Let's see. Where are we? I don't see any more questions. I see lots of San Andreas, which is absolutely correct. Next question. Javier McNeil says, Javier, I suppose. Anyway, Javier McNeil says, what do the different types of goblins mean? Well, you can collect those goblins, and effectively they're yours to do with as you so choose, because they are now your goblins. You have got them. But there's a story that's being told with those goblins, and you might be able to figure it out in the next couple months or so. So keep coming back to find them. Some of you already got them. Some of you, there's a new one that came out this month. I think people have started to collect that already. But yes, next month we'll see where the story goes. So there we go. White Tiger 225 says, what's some ways to spiff up my Centaur Life Cleric? I mean, there are players, but what else can I do roleplay-wise? Why have you answered the 8 questions about your Centaur Life Cleric? Your Centaur Life Cleric. Have you answered those 8 questions? And that I think will certainly help. And one of the questions that I came up with the other day, because I'm pondering all of this stuff about character creation. What was the turning point that caused your life cleric, who's a centaur, to become a life cleric? What was the turning point? That's the big question. When I look at my life, there is a single moment upon which my entire future pivoted. It was a single sentence that was said to me by a complete stranger. And yet it completely changed my life. I've had a few of those moments where my life has changed, but for my career, it was one sentence. And the sentence was, oh, you're the filmmaker from Howick. Now, I grew up in a town called Howick. But that sentence, oh, you're the filmmaker from Howick, that got me to completely change my life. I was a role-playing geek who was going to go and become a very nasty role-playing, probably, lawyer. And that sentence decided that I was going to abandon law school and simply sign up and go and work in television, which has led me to where I am to this day. If I had become a lawyer, there's no ways my life would have turned out the way. I would never have come to this place. So that was one sentence. So when you're building a character, what is a defining moment? We've all had to make that moment, that decision at some point. Most people who watch this channel are over the age of 16. Statistically speaking, YouTube tells me this is true. It also tells me that most of us are over 25. There was a time where you made a decision, and it could also be, by the way, where you didn't make a decision, where stuff just happened, and that event caused things to happen. So think about those. Think about those, and think about that as a motivator for your character. Blood Obsessed says, and welcome to the channel. I don't think I've seen your name around too often before. I have a game that players think is too scary. How do I make it less scary without changing the story? That's interesting. What specifically, when they say that it's too scary, what specifically have you done that makes it scary? Is it descriptive sentences? Is it the unknown that the characters are causing as being terrifying? Is it, what is the, where are the points that cause it to be scary? You have achieved something that a lot of people desperately wish they could achieve, is to cause their players to be scared. So what is it that makes them scared? And is it, if it's the unknown, then maybe you can let them know something. So, for example, when you look at the films like Aliens, Aliens 3, and then Alien Resurrection, the first one is terrifying when you watch it in the context of that time period, because we didn't know what it was. It was this thing that was just killing things. And then eventually we discovered that it was this alien monster thing. Aliens 2 wasn't scary. The aliens were no longer unknown. We knew what they were. Now it was an action movie, which is ostensibly what Aliens, the film is, Aliens 2 is. It's an action film. Aliens 3 is still not scary. It's a psychological horror in terms of these inmates turning on each other and slowly being picked off and not being able to escape. So that's sort of an example. So try and figure out what makes it scary, and then you can take its teeth away if you like. D&D Map says, do you think Minecraft is a good tool for running campaigns? Why or why not? I've never played Minecraft. I thought it was a sort of blocky, miney thing. But this afternoon, I was part of a conversation where someone was playing Minecraft, and they were talking about building something farm, and they needed gravel to do a thing and a thing and a thing. I honestly don't know what Minecraft is, so I can't answer that question, I'm afraid. I really, really, really can't answer that question. So please remember to type the word question in front of your question so it pops out so I can see it clearly and easily. Katie O'Brien Beaumont says, any tips for improv RPing an elegant, subtle NPC as a blunt person? I can deliver a script, but I have trouble double speaking around the NPC improv. So in other words, you are saying that you are a fairly straightforward person, a blunt person, to use your words, but you would like to play, or you would like to be an eloquent or subtle NPC. There is a film called Pygmalion, or there was a play called Pygmalion, and it became a film called My Fair Lady, which was about the difference between someone who speaks their mind and someone who has to put on airs and graces and pretend to be who they're not. I would say that if you are a straightforward person and duplicitousness and innuendo doesn't come easily to you, then instead of saying the words and the double entendres and all those kinds of wonderful things, rather describe how the NPC talks. So say, this very eloquent elf is communicating with you, is telling you about all kinds of unusual habits of trees and leaves and the wind and poetry written 1,000 years ago. Give me an insight check. Give me a psychology check. Give me some kind of check that would happen within the system that you're playing, And if they pass it, then let them know, actually, buried underneath all this talk of poetry and leaves and trees, you get the sense that he's being fairly condescending towards you and is effectively undermining your position. So don't try necessarily to be something that you're not. And again, this afternoon I was having a conversation where with someone about archaeology, and we were saying, well, archaeologists are trained to be archaeologists. They're not trained to be every other occupation out there. So when they discover something, they go, well, this is strange and unusual. Meanwhile, I think we were talking about a dodecahedron that was found, a 12-sided shape that was found, a Roman artifact. The archaeologists went, well, this must be some sort of religious thing, or it must be some kind of ancient relic, or it turns out it's still in use to this day, and you knit gloves with this particular device. Now, unless the archaeologist happened to also be an avid knitter of wool, what would you call a seamstress? No, what is someone who knits things? A knitter? Doesn't sound right. A woolyard? Woolyard is the word I'm going to be using. Anyway, unless they... So, if you are a GM and you are not au fait with speaking with all the fancy language, don't try and do it. Because all it's going to do is frustrate you and leave your players going, I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. Rather describe it. That would be a suggestion to start with, and then you can pretend and practice. Ben, I'm not sure. Knitter just sounds like... A woolyard, I think, sounds much more interesting. It's not a real word. But, they're a woolyard. They knit with wool and other fabrics. Landon asks, any suggestions for ways of rewarding a PC for following the commandments of their deity? Yes, as a matter of fact, there are many ways you can do it. So if it's a simple commandment, if it's something small or something subtle, have something nice happen. When they stop at a tavern, have the tavern keeper say, you know, I recognise that symbol. I'm a worshipper myself. Well, why don't you have the room for the night free? On me. Let us meet together in prayer later on. Worship the great god of sunflowers, or whatever. So I would do that. Little rewards for little acts, bigger rewards for bigger acts. Have them recognised by their church or by other worshippers. Ultimately, if they're making giant sacrifices, I think the god should start to reward them. Perhaps they cast a spell and you feel such divine love and grace from your god as you're casting the spell, it doesn't use a spell slot. You do need to be careful, though, that if your warrior is sharpening their sword or polishing their armor, that you give them the same kind of reward. Because ultimately, at a mechanics level, recognizing one's god is something that you would expect a cleric to do, just like sharpening their sword and maintaining their armor is something that you would expect a warrior to do. And also let your players know, hey, if you guys are really role-playing well, you will get little rewards. And if they go, well, I'm just a fighter, I don't have anything to roleplay with. Roleplay that you're sharpening your sword. There's a whetstone in most of the RPG systems out there in terms of equipment list. It's there for a reason. So go ahead and use it. Genome H says, I find myself asking my players what they want to do, but then describing how they do it. How can I encourage my players to describe their actions more, but also in a more creative way other than I hit it with my sword? Firstly, I always say, well, what do you do? Okay, make your roll. Yes, you succeed. Tell me how you do it. And I am a huge fan of the idiom of is it an idiom? Is it an axiom? Is it I don't know. My partner is learning English and he's doing an amazing job of it. But I don't know all of these English terms. I just use the damn stuff. I don't know what it means. Anyway, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I think with players, it gets to a point where we say, okay, well, what colour's your magic? What does it smell like? What does your armour look like? Describe your sword. How do you make your attack? You can prompt those things. But eventually you're going to discover whether the player jumps into it and starts to give you great descriptions, or the player goes, I just hit it. Oh, is it a proverb? Really? Really? It's a proverb? I don't know. It could be a proverb. Maybe it's a proverb. Anyway, whatever it is, you understood what I meant by it. Sometimes players are just not that creative. And when you say, but surely you can be creative. Well, what you're talking about is describing actions which sometimes most of the players haven't ever gone through themselves. So they're having to picture it in their mind's eye, which takes them away from all of the other things that they're busy doing. So I would definitely try and judge first whether the player is up to it or not. If they're not up to it, then say, all right, what do you do? Oh, I hit it with my sword. All right, you... And then the burden falls to you to describe it. Bearing in mind, you don't want to slow the game down either with 1,000 descriptions. Sometimes a hit is just a hit. You don't need to describe that it slices through, etc., etc., etc. So that is something to definitely bear in mind. Okay, AK Writer says, would you call the absolutely essential toolkit for GMs to adapt mid-session when the PCs take unexpected turns, or I don't know, you prepared A, B, C, and D, and they go for salmon? Would you call the absolutely essential toolkit for GMs to adapt mid-session? Okay, all right, so let me try and understand this question, AK Writer. Okay. So, when players deviate from your plan, that is the first thing that they are going to do. And it's important to realize that that's what they're going to do. What is also important to realize is that only you know your plan. So when the players deviate from it, what are they doing in actual fact? They're telling the story. They're on the story. They're following the story. So you are facilitating the triggers and events that they are causing to happen. So if you have got this journey going in a certain direction, and I have to say welcome to all of our forgers, all of our world anvilites, welcome, welcome, light up the forge, light up the forge. Who ordered some coal? Well, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So when the players start to go off on their own direction, that's absolutely fine. You, as the GM, are responsible for, okay, you're going down that path. What's down that path? What do you have at your disposal in order to continue telling the situation, in order to continue the events and the triggers that are going to go with that? You have a map, so you know where that pathway goes. You have a vague idea of what's happening in that area, or maybe you don't. Time to make it up on the fly. That's part of your responsibility. But you follow it through. Now, if they are in the middle of a quest and they abandon the quest because they're following something else, there should be consequences if they don't finish the quest in time. But generally speaking, I will, if they are on a quest and they deviate and they go somewhere else, I will pause my plot, triggers, and events until they come back. And part of what I will be doing is following where they're going and then dropping severe clues that they can come back to their main event. They can come back to their main journey. They can come back to the main storyline. And then when they do come back to it, they discover that, well, yes, not a lot has happened since they left. We are far too easy to say, oh, but the scientist would have completed his work. Sure, but you're just saying that because you're the GM. You could equally say, well, the scientist didn't actually complete his work because although these players who were interfering have stopped, he actually discovered that the reagent that he was using had expired and he had to go to the shop to buy more, and that caused a gigantic chain of events which delayed him by 3 weeks. Nobody knows except for you. This is why I get so frustrated with GMs who say, oh, it's a simulation and the simulation must run as it has been prescribed. You are only running that for yourself. The players don't know it, and they don't see it, and they won't see it. So well done. If you just stick to what was planned and the players don't involve, you're playing a solo game. Doesn't work that way. So if they go off, they go off. You follow them. You journey with them. Go and explore. See where they go. Then develop an adventure based on that and then bring them back to your original one. It's not wasted. It's not lost. It has been a journey and that's part of it. So that would be my advice there. Handsome Aaron says, I recently realized there are important plot world building elements I forgot to convey to my players. Should I leave them in the dark until I can fix it or just fill them in out of game? Okay, never fill them in out of game. Never fill them in out of game. Why? So, bottom line, if you're filling in the players out of game, then they should be able to use that out of game knowledge in game. Otherwise, why are you telling them? What's going to be the benefit? If you then say, okay, I'm telling you this out of game so that in-game your characters can know what's going on, then they should be able to use any knowledge they have and never have to worry about it, whether it's in-game or out of game. So you're breaking the space that theoretically metagaming is bad from this perspective. If they've missed stuff in the plot, there are many, many ways in which you can make it feel as if they have discovered it, even though they have missed it. So let's say, for example, the princess has been abducted and they didn't investigate the evil queen who you set up as being totally evil. She tried to poison one of the courtiers. The PCs saw it, but they didn't do anything about it. So they've missed that entire link. You could very well have a courtier arrive at the PC's door begging for help because someone in the castle is trying to kill them and they don't know why. But they reveal later on that they discovered a vial of poison in the queen's chamber, which is the same poison that killed the princess, or whatever the story is, right? So that comes through on a little side mission. Don't be afraid to pepper out and add in some side missions to add this information in. So don't panic, don't worry. You've got plenty of time. You really do, even though you might feel like you don't. You really, really, really do. Because what happens if you are, well, within the next 24 hours, the world is going to end if you don't do something. And now I have to put you on a side quest, which is going to take 3 weeks to do because I need you to go on the side quest. No, have it as a dream sequence or have it as a flashback. As you settle down for the night, your mind wanders back to last week, just after you had killed the queen and started out on your journey. Cut to a night sequence where they are a week behind, a week in the past, and they go through some little adventure where they get the information. So there's lots of ways that you can bring that information back to them. You don't have to panic and just give it to them, and definitely don't give it to them out of game. All right. Warren Taylor says, I have trouble role-playing enemy NPCs that are spellcasters. A couple of my players have a very high AC that requires save spells in order to do damage to them. Any advice for this? Well, look, characters that have got very high ACs are characters that have been built according to the rules. I often find that because the rules were designed with the player using a vast amount of resources at their disposal versus the GM who is sitting with a fixed static block of characters, of monsters, the monsters are often underwhelming and underpowered. So I would, instead of looking at, okay, how do I make bigger spellcasters, or how do I use legal builds of spellcasters and that sort of thing? Yes, you could argue that your job is to create balanced or imbalanced encounters, etc., etc., etc. But I would argue that your job is to make it fun for everybody. So if those paladins with those warriors with super high armor classes can't ever get hit, they've built themselves that way, and that's what they're aiming for. They want that to be the fun component of it. Don't suddenly throw people who are throwing poison gas at them all the time. That becomes incredibly frustrating and incredibly boring. So you don't want to do that. At the same time, though, suddenly the monsters they start fighting start showing respect for these creatures. So when they arrive, the monsters just surrender and say, oh, we know your reputation. We're not going to fight you. We can't defeat you. We give up. If they want to kill them in cold blood, that's absolutely fine. But then the law should start getting involved. Or evil gods should start saying, I like your style. Yeah, you kill those on their knees. So much cleaner and easier than fighting them in an honorable duel. I want you to come and work for me. I've got a position open down here in hell for a new torturer. I think you'd be perfect. So there are ways and means. Another alternative is to change up how you are handling your encounters. So they have a high AC. That's fantastic because they are obviously wearing fantastic armor, which may have a weight to it. So if your encounters are on swinging bridges, or if they're in water, or if there's a risk of them falling into water, that starts to make them more dramatic once again for our characters. And instead of trying to hit that armor class, look for things that don't necessarily have to target the person in particular. So area of effect type of things, nets, traps, pits, all those kinds of things. There's many ways that you can work around it, but yes, I understand it is also very fatiguing when nothing can hit them. Again, that is what they have done because they wanted to build it that way. So let them have some fun. Let them win everything. and see where it goes. Right, let's see. Seth Evelyn says, what tips would you give for creating the tone of Gothic horror? Or do you already have a video covering said topic? Well, Gothic horror is very vampire-like, very Victorian-like, in my mind anyway. That's my expectation. What's your expectation of Gothic horror? I also think that Gothic horror, although it's very... Well, let's rephrase the question. When you think Gothic horror, what do you see in your mind's eye? I see very dark, noir-style shadows, lots of arch windows that have dreary thunderstorms outside, rolling cold foliage on very lonely heaths and moors, and severe individuals that have either got gigantic eyebrows and hooked noses or sunken eyes, that are furtive or squirrely, dark and cramped, says Vitak. All those kinds of things. People who don't want to talk very loudly because someone might hear them. So it's about trying to figure out what visual and audio and other senses trigger Gothic horror. And I think it's all of those kinds of things. Lightning framed castles, absolutely. So yes, all of these kinds of things. It's really about building up that vocabulary and then driving it home and then getting players to describe it and saying, how is your character gothically horrible? Give me that description. Where's your character? Because even when you think of something like Dracula, the original book written by Bram Stoker, the characters were all quite severe as well. Mina Harker and Jonathan Harker, for example, were very stoic in their attitude towards one another. And so was Lucy, as a matter of fact. She was awfully upset that she had caused 3 men to become morose because she had turned down their wedding proposals, or their marriage proposal. So it's a lot about all of that kind of stuff. So I would drive that and then get your players to drive it back to you by describing a black coach, black horses on a grey sky. You climb into the black carriage that smells vaguely of mold. All those kinds of wonderful things. Really draw on that. As a source. I would certainly do that. And then watch Hammer horror films. I don't think you get much better than that. Okay, lots of suggestions and stuff. Right, so whilst there are no questions on my screen for this very brief moment, there's 2 things that we're going to be doing tonight over and above what we normally do. So, for those of you that did not watch the Circle of World Builders masterclass over last weekend, there is a playlist that will be going up, hopefully in the next couple of days, which contains the specific talks in their little slots. So you don't have to watch the whole thing all over again. So those will be made available shortly. However, part of that masterclass was the submission of adventures using the 5 steps adventure template to my section. And I will be going through those submissions over the course of the next couple weeks, breaking them down, looking at right things, looking at wrong things, and giving suggestions on how to use those. Moving forward, if you are a patron of my channel, you will be able to submit your adventure plan using the 5-step method that I've described on my channel. You will be able to submit that, and then I will go through your work live. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, if you are a patron, I'm looking for 4 or 5 players to join me on a Friday night, every second Friday, starting this coming Friday, okay, round about this time, maybe a little bit earlier. So yes, unfortunately, I know it's exclusive to this time zone, but it is what it is. To join me in playing a 4-part Star Wars campaign using this rule system. Now, this is the Star Wars role-playing D20 system. It is based, many of you won't remember it, but it is based on the old D20 system, okay? And I feel of all of the Star Wars systems that have ever been released, This is the most balanced of the bunch. It uses the D20 system, which is 3.75 D&D rules, basically. But it is rewritten, obviously, for Star Wars. I really enjoyed this version. So I'm looking for 4 players. Now, how do you apply to join? It's very, very simple. You're going to follow me over here. I am now in rpgtablefinder.com. I will share the link. Boom. There you go. Okay, I'm going to create a table. And then you just apply to join the table. You do have to be a Patreon. So please make sure that you are Patreon. Otherwise, you're going to get disappointed. 4-part Star Wars RPG. Okay, and the 4-part Star Wars. I hate redoing this. RPG to be played every second Friday at, say, 6 p.m. GMT. Okay. And the language is Afrikaans. Nee, ons sal nie in daardie taal praat nie. So English, role-playing system. I don't think the Web Goblin's got it in here. What do you think? Do you think the Web Goblin's got it in here? Do you think? Star Wars, he did. 10 points to him. My goodness. Okay, well, 10 points to him. I take my hat off to him. No, wait, not, yeah, there we go. Not freeform. Number of players needed. I'm going to put down 5. Okay. And the Dungeon Master is not needed because I will be the Dungeon Master. Tabletop role-playing experience. I am going to say intermediate. In terms of, you need to know what a D20 is. And you need to know what a D12 is. And I say this with the greatness of fondness, but people who arrive at the table and go, what's a D20 again? You haven't role-played enough. Okay, it'll obviously be online. There is the... His thoroughness is fantastic. I mean, this is all designed by the Web Goblin for you guys, by the way. I mean, what? What did I leave out? Please ensure you... Oh, God, time zone. Yes, all right, fine. So I am GMT +1. Yes. Great. Right, there we go. So table's been created. There we are. I don't know what this is. I think this is a demo that he was doing for me. But yeah, it was a demo. It definitely should not be looked at all. I don't know what that is. Okay, so let's see. Inky Design. Can new patrons apply? When you apply, I will ask you, are you a Patreon? You answer yes, this is my Patreon name. I will go and check whether you are a patron on the channel or not. If you are, and it's okay, good, fine, thank you, then yes, you can play. I don't have an issue with that. If you play through 4 sessions and at the end of the first 2 sessions you are denied because you haven't done a second subscription month, that's on you. So there we go. Is there an age limit? Okay, so we're done there. Is there an age limit on those who play? I generally prefer not to play with anyone over the age of 85. It's just because being reminded of death constantly is depressing. No, I'm completely joking. There is no age limit whatsoever because the only caveat would be that you would need to have a camera and you would need to have a microphone and a quiet space. And that's not because I want to record this and put it on my YouTube channel. It's because I'm a grumpy old man and having people play in my game where the background is a constant sound of screaming, shouting, barking, noise, etc., is irritating to me as a human being. All right. If you are an obnoxious player, I will kick you out. I'm saying this right now. If you are offensive, I will, in any slight way, I will say thank you for watching, but clearly you have not been watching my YouTube channel. So with the greatest of love, off. Okay, so there we go. Did you just summon the Afrikaans, says Jimmy James. I think there are a lot of Afrikaans people in South Africa who are currently very, very angry because they're going, someone spoke our language and butchered it. Calbaro5 says... If we're to use a zone-style combat system like Fate in 5th edition, What pitfalls should one watch out for? By zone-style combat, I'm not too familiar with Fate. I've only played it once or twice, and I think it was like Fate Light anyway. Do you mean like the head is if you roll a certain number, legs, arms, etc., etc.? Do you mean that? In which case, there are some systems in place, a hit location table. My advice to you is when the person makes their attack, they roll that hit location at the same time so that you're saving time going, yes, you hit. Now, where did you hit? Just roll it. Yes, I hit, or I rolled a 16 to a hit and I hit the arm. So the GM can just run through it straight away. So I would do that. I would do that. Inky Design says you got a new Patreon. I've been contemplating joining the Patrons for now, and I have no reason not to. Well, there's no guarantee. There is no guarantee that you will get in. I think that's very, very important. There's no guarantee. It's literally the first 5 people that apply, and that have a decent bio. So, yeah. So there we go. But yes, if you want to be a patron, that's fantastic. Obviously, your support is amazing and really helps things move forward. So bear that in mind. Okay. I would make a silly comment about my knowledge of D20, but my name would probably make it less silly. Yeah. Yeah. Curmudgeon is a better description of you, guy. I'm an old curmudgeon? Interesting. I see. Curmudgeon is a lovely word. AK Writer says, is it written in stone that you'd start this Friday? Because I'd love to participate. I would love for you to participate, AK Writer. But yes, this Friday, the date of the 12th is when I would want to start, because the other group that I've got going, it's supposed to meet every second Friday. We last played on the 19th of May, and we're only going to play again on the 22nd of June. That's not every second Friday. I'm literally, this last Friday, I was so tempted to launch it and go, who's around? Let's play right now. I just want to role play. So yes, it is starting this Friday, the 12th of June. That's it. It's starting, and off we go. So it'll be the 12th of June, and then 2 weeks after that. And then 2 weeks after that, and then 2 weeks after that. Done, dusted, simple and straightforward. And yes, what I'm hoping to do is that after this session of 4, it's like, okay, that was fun. Now let's get 4 other people in, or carry on, and let's see where it goes. But I think cycling through could be quite fun. Watcher2417 says, what does writing your story do? What does writing your story do? Which story? Watcher 2417. If you can just give me some clarity on that, please. Give me some clarity on that. Thalmic Sky says, do you have any tips, thoughts when it comes to integrating your PC's backstories into the main plot or the antagonist? Generally, I would avoid the PC's backstories linking into the antagonist. If only because what if that PC dies, or what if the player wants to change their character, and the antagonist is something that you're setting up for a big bad and that sort of thing. However, the method I usually generate is I have about 14 key plot adventures, 14 of them, and generally speaking, they happen once every 3 or every 4 adventures. The other adventures are often player generated, so I call those emergent adventures, and then one of them is usually designed for linking into player backstory. So then I go into the player backstory, I see what they're doing, and then I grab a story and I pull it across and I say, there we go. I will now do an adventure for that. So that way, if the player leaves or if the character leaves, then we are sorted and we're fine and we can move on from there. I hope that answers. Oh, hang on a moment. Look at this. You see, so the Web Goblin and I, we have a great relationship, and he designs stuff and he builds stuff, and then he sometimes he shows me, and sometimes I'm one of those bad friends where I'm going, wow, that's amazing. Sometimes he shows me everything at the same time, and I'm like, my brain cannot keep up with that. Blurg, basically. So anyway, all right. Captain Prices says, what's with the paladin encounters a mage, gets hit by disintegrate in the intro? Feels awfully familiar. I was there when it was released. What intro? Paladin encounters a mage, gets hit by disintegrate. In the intro? What intro? There's an intro? What intro are you talking about? But yes, I had a paladin who was hit by disintegrate, and because I misread the rules, I completely killed a player character by mistake. I misread the rules on how disintegrate works. And so there we are. In the countdown? Is there a story in the countdown? Really? Okay, I must check. It's been a while since I made it, to be absolutely honest with you. All right. Lots of questions still coming through, which is fantastic, which is absolutely fantastic. Watcher2417 says, on your Twitter account, you always post that you're making progress on the story you're writing. I was wondering how things are going. I guess I could show you. So I have always berated myself for not writing a book, a creative book. I usually don't start it because I'm worried that people would not want to read it, or anyway. So I started a writing group on Discord. It's literally called the Writing Group, I think. What's it called? Writers Support Group on the Discord server. I'll put the Discord server in the chat. And I started that because then I have a bunch of people that I can be held accountable to write. So how's it going? This is a very brief showing. I'm on page 135 in screenplay format. So this is screenplay format, and I'm not letting you read it because the way that I have written this, you can probably see this example here. Okay, is literally the hero. I haven't got a name for him. His name is Hero. And the lady that travels with the hero, the name is Lady. So Fence is literally the fence that they're meeting in this tavern. Guandargle is an NPC name. I know this character will never feature again, so I can give them a name. But literally, that's how I work that. You can try frame by frame, but I suspect you won't get too much. And if you do, well, not going to make a hell of a lot of sense because this is a stream of consciousness that I am writing using names. My own name is in there as one of the characters. So I can read one line that says Dumbledore dies. Yeah, absolutely. So why write it? Well, because we can, and we're all creative. That's why we're on this channel, is we're all creative people. And we just needed a way to express that. And I think about all the campaigns that I've run. And you go, well, if you wrote that down, this is something that the Japanese are very good at, by the way, is that they run their campaigns. And then one of them is usually taking copious amounts of notes. And then they release it as a published book. When you go into a lot of the game stores in Tokyo, there's usually shelves and shelves and shelves of people's diarized, recorded type of thing. It's remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. So I started to do that. But now the Web Goblin has given me budget approval, I suppose one could say, for the next book that we're going to be kickstarting and producing. And it's not the book that I thought it was going to be. So that book I've had to temporarily put on hold. We will finish that book eventually. But this other book, I'm very excited about it. I've outlined the chapters. 21 new chapters will be in this book. But that's a lot of writing. So this creative process will have to be shelved, and then we will write the new book. So the new book, it's not going to be a huge spoiler if I tell you now. So yeah, Ben Nicholson, the airship book. I wanted to do the complete guide to aerial campaigns. Because I think it's a lot of fun, and it kind of works on what we've been doing. And so the Web Goblin went, well, yes. But it's niche. Now, we're a business, first and foremost. So it's niche. And I went, yeah. And he went, well, so yes, it's niche. And I went, well, next point. And he said, it's very niche. So why don't we write something that's not so niche first? And then you can write your niche one. This is what he normally does, you see. And then he bought me a new camera, which is arriving at the end of the month. So he really knows how to play me like a very fat fiddle. So the next book is actually a complete guide to creating epic characters. Now, yes, I know I suck at book titles, but we've got a thing here, and that's what we're going to be doing. So it's going to be on how to create a character, how to create an epic character. And I'm not talking stats-wise. You know that will never happen on this channel, ever, ever, ever in a million years. But it is going to be a book that is all about how to create a character. And the underlying fundamentals of this book, from what I can see at the moment, is it's 21 chapters, so there's a lot to know, right? But this is not like epic campaigns or nautical campaigns. Nautical campaigns was a straight up rule book settings thing. Epic campaigns was my first book, and I will be rewriting that at some point in the near future, in the far future, because the near future I'm busy. Epic Guide to Player Characters is going to be more of a tool. It's going to be more practical than either of the previous two books. Will the character in the new book also be called Hero? Most likely it will be, as a matter of fact. But yeah, so there's lots and lots of stuff that's going to be in that new book, which is, right, this is what you can do if you want to be creative, if you want to put your own imprint. But if you don't, here are a whole lot of, I don't want to say pre-generated, but here are a lot of options for you, so that if you want to build an amazing character backstory, this is how you do it. But if you don't want to do it, then you can select one of these. And we're talking about 100 options in each of the different spaces. So it's not like you would have, here is your character history, and it's an entire history. It's going to be, let's talk about your early years, your character's birth. You were born, and then there's going to be 100 options. And then you went to this education, and then there's going to be 100 options. So you can create a backstory, and it links together. So I've been working on this method for quite a while, and I'm quite happy with the technique of creating this very coherent backstory that makes sense. But it's not just backstory. It's personalities. It's everything that has ever been on this channel about how to create a good character. So I think it's going to be working really, 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 really well. Okay. AK Writer says, how about the journey to your hero? Look, whether we call it a complete guide to creating an epic character, I mean, that would just be flippantly funny, I think, if every book that Great GM ever released was a complete guide to epic, nautical, aerial, aquatic, personal, I don't know. I mean, we could, whatever. I think that could just be quite fun. So, but yes, it's we're going to see what it is. And as Xander says, it sounds like the player template book I saw at Barnes and Noble. Perhaps. I mean, I certainly know that this is not the first book on epic campaigns, and it's not the first book on nautical combat, heaven knows, and it won't be the first book on character creation. But I hope anyway, that the methods that I present make it intuitive and fun, perhaps. Anyway. Right, so enough on that. We're going to review now. We're going to not randomly, I'm going to be doing this in logical order. We're going to start going. So to give you an idea, here were all of the submissions. We had 64 submissions, and there were a whole bunch of new ones that came in that I haven't yet touched, which I will be touching. And then hopefully, if you are a patron, you can submit your own ideas as well. So there you are. Then my novel can be the complete story of Guy's book, part 1. Yeah, well, part 1, part 2, part 53. Anyway, so we're going to be looking at today's adventure. This is using the 5-step outline. And here it is here. I'm going to make this a bit more make sense. Now, one page, if you please, and zoom to 100%. No, that's still no good. Okay, so we are looking at the 5 steps, which is arrive at plot, journey to plot part 2. That's a cheat. Discover, not plot, journey to new plot, and then kill plot and win, right? So that's the 5 steps that we're basically talking about. And this is submitted by somebody. I have no idea who it is. We tried to scrub names out. And it is called The Passion in Darkness. Ooh. Hopefully it's PG. Right. We're looking for, and to answer the questions who, what, why, when, how, and why. Okay, and then we will go from there. So, PCs enter Port Town via Dock Gate. Okay, this sounds like an author of my own heart here. The PCs arrive Port Town via Dock Gate to wait for ship. Okay, great. Threatened by ghoulish old sailors on entry to hand over a ring that they do not know. Ahead, more sailors flee as a bloody merchant falls from his cart. Aha. Okay. Interesting. So this is a bit of a dramatic thing, right? So a ghoulish old sailor demands they hand over a ring that they do not know they have, or something along those lines. Ahead, more sailors flee as a bloody merchant falls from his cart. Okay, so there's a what we talk about when we're looking at adventures is that we are looking at a hook. This is an interesting one. Forget the sailors and stuff. It's like there's a bloody merchant who falls from the cart. That's an instantaneous say what? As the dying merchant falls, his cart bolts towards a crowded warehouse. The fleeing sailors are being chased across the cluttered and busy dock by this cart, assumedly. And there's some skill challenge notes, which we don't need to worry about at this point, but that's fine. A sailor escapes with the ring. From where? From the PCs? They didn't know that they had it. Okay, so this could be, and by the way, these were written under extremely tight circumstances, so latitude for that. So we'll figure out where the ring came from. So do you see that I'm picking apart this based on how, what, who, where, when? So we know what's going on. We know where we are. We know why this is happening. The merchant was killed, assumedly, for the ring, which the sailor wanted, and the sailors are fleeing because the cart is racing towards the warehouse, and hopefully the PCs are going to try and stop that from destroying everybody or killing everybody, so that's absolutely fine. Once the chaos is over, the ring escapes. Okay, so where is the ring? Why is the ring important? What was the ring, or what is the ring going to be used for? All that kind of stuff. Now, whoever wrote this, and this is the most important thing, is that I am not picking this apart because I am mean, cruel, or nasty. I'm picking it apart for a learning exercise. So if this was perfectly written, it would not be helpful to us. But this is helpful to us. So this is your notes as the GM. So that's my first question. Okay, with the ring, from where? The players didn't have it. Where did that come from? Okay. A Gothic carriage drawn by horse spirits, okay, arrives. All right, so ghostly horses, ghoulish sailors. I'm seeing a bit of a theme here. Gothic carriage. Lady asks PC to find the ring and bring it to her husband, Lord Ansavan. Okay, well, we don't care about his name in this particular case, but there is our plot. Okay. So it's a little bit late, but that's okay. This could happen in this whole part here. That's absolutely fine. Investigation leads them to the veteran sailors' retirement home, a large quayside hulk of a ship. Okay. This investigation, it would be better to elaborate here, and not in full, but just to say a sailor points them to the veteran sailors' retirement home. Okay. A fight inside massive ship's hull with ghoulish sailors and their ghastly warlock captain. Hull filled with rope ladders and small platforms built inside, sides with tables and cooking area down the middle. Okay. We're also looking for logic, right? And so this fight, which is brilliant, okay, it's absolutely wonderful. Where is it happening and why is it happening? How did we get from a lady saying, please find my lord's ring, to this fight? I would need to see, because I thought we were going to the veterans retirement home, right? So I'm not sure. We'll have to see the link. I do like the idea of a fight inside a ship's hull with ghoulish sailors and a hull filled with rope ladders that the PCs have to hang on because the bottom of the ship perhaps is filled with water and there's a piranha school at the bottom. So if they fall into it, they'll get eaten whilst fighting. I think that could be quite fun. If perhaps they see the ring being carried off into the ship's hull, that might work. But it looks to me like they get the ring. Okay. Which then the PCs take the fire serpent ring to the Lord's home, a mansion built on the promontory outside of port. Okay. Honorable Lord and Lady give PCs gifts and thanks for the ring. Sinister undercurrents during meeting as the butler takes the ring to the Lord's grieving and demented father in the lighthouse. Also, they say PCs given carriage to return to docks or stay in Plush Inn whilst they wait to leave. Okay. Mutated sea bass, says Jimmy James. You're quite right. Yes, mutated sea bass. Drake Vale says the ship is the retirement house. Okay, cool. I can accept that. Yes, that's cool. So that'll work. Yeah, I think that'll work. PCs reached Noble Graveyard and beckoned in a disembodied voice. Skeleton climbs out of the graves, bursting into flames as they attack. But what graveyard? Okay, so this is, and yes, it's banana milk, no judgment. This is where most of the time we see the stories fall apart and where the magic gets lost. So look at this. The Lord and Lady give the gifts to the PCs. Oh, you found our ring. That's wonderful. It's marvelous. It's brilliant. Thank you so very much. Go away. So they can either take a carriage back into town, in which case, why the hell are they in the graveyard in the next scene? Or they can stay at the inn, but they're probably going to take the docks back to town because the adventure is over. As far as the PCs are concerned, the adventure is over. That is not what we want. We want the PCs to discover that there is more to it. So it could very well be that as the PCs are leaving, the butler pulls the PCs inside and says, "You understand that ring doesn't belong to the Lord. He's using it to control the souls of his dead ancestors so that they provide him with information on his child slave ring." Whatever, right? So they discover that the person they've just given the ring to is actually using it for evil purposes, and they're now facilitating that. Or not, or you know. That is now how the journey expands. So that's what I would do here in terms of linking the two together. Because now the PCs reach a noble graveyard and the beckoned by disembodied voice. Okay. The spirit of Jared's wife pleads for help, explaining that she was murdered by a fire god. Jared believes the gods whispered promises for the release of the fire serpent from the ring. Jared is mad for the return of his wife, but she can't reach him even now. All the PCs need to do is take her bones to him. Worse, the fire god's servant, a smoke dragon, Druglor, has possessed the son, Ansavan, suffocating him to death if Jared doesn't do his bidding. Okay, it probably makes sense in the author's head. Let's rework this. So, let's figure this out. So, the fire god's servant has the Lord Ansavan, who we've just met, but has possessed Lord Ansavan, okay, and is suffocating him and will suffocate him to death if Jared doesn't do his bidding. Okay, Jared is the father of Lord Ansavan's wife. Jared's wife is dead and is pleading for help, saying that she was murdered by the fire god, the servant of which is in her son-in-law's body. Jared believes the gods whispered promises for the release of the fire serpent from the ring. Okay. Why? Jared is mad for the return of his wife, but she can't reach him even now. All the PCs need to do is take her bones to him. It is noble family business. You're quite right. All right, so what this sounds to me, it sounds like in an attempt to make this a twist, it's become complicated. And this is an excellent, excellent, excellent situation to be in for all of us learning. So whoever wrote this, I thank you for writing it. By complicating this, he said, she said, they said, we said, it did this, that happened. It doesn't make it, it doesn't make the adventure better. It makes it so that the players are going, when? Who did this now? How? What? I'm not sure. On the other hand, if this was where we started it, the key thing that's missing here, when we ask who, what, where, when, why, and how, why is the fire god, why did the fire god kill Jared's wife? Why is the fire god's servant, why has the fire god's servant possessed Ansavan? Okay. And why does Jared want to release the fire serpent from the ring? What does the fire serpent have to do? These are questions the players are going to be asking, hopefully. And these are questions that we should have answers to. I don't see the answer there. So let's carry on going. Journey to new plot. PC's convince the desperate daughter or butler. Okay, there was mention of a butler. No, there wasn't. Okay. To know that his master Jared took the ring into the sea caves below the wine cellar with his son, the possessed son. She can confirm that her husband is possessed by evil smoke. Does that merchant from the beginning matter? Handsome Aaron, it is an excellent question. Who killed the merchant and why? Did the merchant have the ring? Maybe the merchant had a ring. Okay. The daughter wears a necklace of strangulation. It's triggered by her words of betrayal of her father-in-law and the Fire Lord. The sea cave entrance is masked by a secret door with a magic puzzle. Okay, that's absolutely fine. PCs meet Mad Jared in mid-ritual with the ring. Wife Spirit talks him down and then ejects the smoke dragon from the sun. There she stays and calls for the party to stop Dragolor. The PCs must deal with the Fire Lord's servant before it kills them and Jared. Rewards: the Fire Serpent Ring and the Necklace of Strangulation. Mad Jared, the Priest of Fire, the ghost of Jared's wife, the possessed son Ansavan, and the old warlock ghost Captain Molov. All right. So, this is a good clue, right? This is a good clue here. Mad Jared, the Priest of Fire. Right. We're going to go a little bit over time on this one because I think it's an excellent opportunity for all of us to work together. Knowing that Jared is a high priest of fire, this adventure can become a lot more interesting. I think a lot clearer. Now, bear in mind, I suspect that whoever wrote this, English might not be their first language because a lot of people from Europe watch my show. And that's absolutely fine. So there might be a loss in translation. However, Mad Jared, the High Priest of Fire. Okay. What if he was a high priest? Well, he was a high priest before he went mad. What if he sacrificed his wife to the fire god because he was a high priest of fire? So he sacrifices his wife to the fire god. In exchange, the fire god gives him something. Okay. What does the fire god give him? The fire god gives him Dragolor, the servant, a smoke dragon, which Jared can use and control for his own purposes. However, Jared goes mad and loses control of the smoke dragon. And the smoke dragon then, as punishment for Gerard going mad, now possesses the sun, Ansavan. Right? So that could be the story. Gerard's wife, who was sacrificed to the fire god, is now a very angry spirit because she was sacrificed to the fire god. And perhaps the water god has kept her trapped in the sea caves. And so that is where that happens. The ring, which contains... No, the ring used to contain Dragolor. Okay. That was how Mad Gerard used to be able to control him. But Dragolor escaped into Ansavan. So the ring could be used to get the Mad Dragon out of Ansavan and trap it once again within the ring, taking all of the power away from Mad Gerard and from Ansavan the sun. So what this means is we've now got a through line, the ring. But why do the players need, or how are the players going to get involved with that ring? We go back to the beginning, okay? And the beginning is quite simple. A sailor talks about how he was fishing off of the lighthouse point, because I think that's where the house is. And lo and behold, if a ring doesn't drop down into the water next to him, just out of the blue, someone must have been up at the cliffs and dropped the ring. Okay, the ring has slipped off of the finger of Mad Gerard, who was out on the cliffs taking in the afternoon sunshine. He holds up this ring, and the ring gleams and sparkles and instantly causes everyone within the radius to try and kill each other by setting each other on fire. The effect of the ring. This takes place in front of a giant statue of the high priest Gerard as the flame priest in the town, and also who is the one who lives in the giant castle on the hill. Okay. The ring ends up in the PC's hands. Okay. Don't make them go running off and try and all of this stuff. We're gonna move elsewhere. So the ring ends up in the PC's hands. This fight is going on. If the PCs join in the fight, that's great. If the PCs don't join in the fight, if they decide that no, this is not for them, they want to move on, one of the sailors can burst from the crowd, hand the ring to the PCs and say, please look after it. I just need to buy some time. I'll pay you a small fee. And then he goes back into the fight, right? So we can figure out how to get this ring into the PC's hands. The PCs get the ring. It's very easy to identify that this is the ring of a high priest of the Fire Lord. We don't know who it is and that sort of thing. The sailor does not arrive, but a ghost does. So skip all of this stuff. A ghost arrives and says, that is the ring of my mad husband. I implore you to please, 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 please destroy the ring. As I say that, I realize it's a mistake. The spirit should attack them, thinking that they are her mad husband, right? Then someone arrives and says, we noticed that you had the ring, come to the Lord's manor, and that's how we then get into the rest of the story, bringing us back to the cave. It's a little convoluted, but hey, we're making this up on the fly. So that's how we work with this. Again, though, it's about saying, well, the ring is important because we're asking, why is it the bloody merchant falls from this cart? Okay. Gerard, when the PCs arrive with the ring, could say, oh, I lost my ring this morning. Thank you so much for bringing it back to me. Now you can go. Meanwhile, there's this vengeful spirit who keeps begging them to take action and so on. So it's a good space to be in, I think, to build this. The passion in darkness. I think that works out a little bit better. But again, take this as an example and say, right, I have looked at this. This is my adventure. So when you are writing out your adventure, you write out your adventure and you go, this is what I've written out. Then go back and say, right, PCs enter Port Town via Dockgate. Okay, we don't have to answer that. That's just where they are in the story. Threatened by ghoulish old sailors on entry to hand over a ring that they don't know. Well, we've rewritten this entire thing, but the way you interrogate your own adventure is by saying, threatened by a ghoulish old sailor. Why are the sailors threatening them for this ring? If you can't answer that, then what is the dialogue that they are going to have with the PCs? Why do they want the ring? Why did these sailors want the ring? Were they trying to return it to the Lord? We don't know that. But even in our rewritten version, why? Why? Okay. So why and where and how do they know that the pieces got the ring? How, etc. So you just interrogate every line in the story, and eventually you get to a point where you go, yeah, why is it this way? And then you can rework it and rethink it. Anyway, that's my take on adventure submission number 1. We'll go through these over the next couple of weeks, and if there's less questions, then I will do more of these in an episode. If there are more questions, I will do less. So there we are. Right, folks. I hope that was insightful in one way, and whoever wrote that, thank you for submitting it. Thank you for allowing us insight and for seeing what an adventure looks like. Like I said, anything that was submitted is better than anything else that was not submitted. So I thank everybody for submitting their work. Right, so now I can delete it from the books. Handsome Aaron says, how do you submit those? It's very simple. You, provided that you're a patron of the channel, you head on over to, and I will share the link. Okay, so it is, there's the link. So if you want to, you head on over to the YouTube, you head on over to the channel. This is the website, Great Game Master. You go to Great Library, Bag of Holding, Circle of World Builders for now, and there we go. You download the 5-step story form PDF. Okay, the 5-step form PDF, and there it is there. That's what it looks like when it's not in Word document. You can then fill that in, and then you email that through to me at, I've got to use the professional one now. I can never remember. Hello at greatgamemaster.com. Hello at greatgamemaster.com. And then we will review it as time goes by. I'm on that. Any other? Right. Okay. So let's see. So that's your question there. Dracovel says, Guy, what do you use to communicate with your players? I'm curious if the phone would suffice as a camera for the game. If so, I would apply for the game. So Dracovel, the way that we play the game is invariably through Zoom. So I will do a Zoom call. People join in. You can use Zoom on your mobile phone. I would hope that it would be on Wi-Fi, because data bundles are always going to be tricky. But yes, it is through Zoom. And if you're uncertain about that, you can Google Zoom video conferencing. Will it work on my phone? And then you can check it out and see. I don't know if that will be the greatest of experiences for you. This will mainly be theater of the mind kind of stuff. So there wouldn't be a lot of maps and things to look at. But yes, that's usually how it will work. Jimmy James says, as a DM and player, do you feel that when PCs make great and full backstories, it is harder to keep the threat of death in game, to lose all that invested work of the player? I don't. I try and keep death out of my games anyway, and anyone who's played in my games will know that dramatic surviving is far more exciting than pointless death. But if someone's created a great backstory, they've had fun creating that backstory. They really have. So no, it doesn't stop me from killing them off. But there's never any intent. So there's never any purpose to killing them off. That's the bottom line. If they die, they die. Songbird says, are there any plans to get the vampire cow as an emote? I think World Anvil has an emote on their Discord, so there we are. Laura Bones says, no, I just reached 3,000 and all the goblins are gone. Well, Laura, you got lots of goblins over the last couple of weeks. I'm fairly certain of that. So you get to keep those goblins. I mean, I do hope you get to keep them. Look, between you, me, and everyone who's watching, I may have screwed up how the reward system works. So bear that in mind. But you're supposed to, I think when you get the goblin, you keep the goblin, don't you? Don't you keep the goblin? Dear God, I hope you keep the goblin. Anyway, so there we are. Deepapana says, do you have any tips on how to actually sit down and start writing / prepping? Yes. Do you have a group? There's no point in planning until then. But do you have a group? Do you have a group? So there you go. If you have a group, sit down and start planning. Talk to them. What do they want to play? Like in this case, I've said, I want to play a Star Wars game. But once we have signed up those that will be playing in the Star Wars game, the very first question I'll be asking them is, what period do you want to play in? Pre-New Hope, which is Old Republic. New Hope time period, which is the traditional Star Wars time frame that everyone thinks about, or post, although post is tricky now that they've released all these new movies that have cocked up the story, for lack of a better word. Anyway, I haven't seen the last film yet. Laura Bone says, were we supposed to count the amount of goblins we bought? I thought it kept track of the number of goblins that were bought. There may need to be a little review of this thing. Captain Prices says, will you be joining us in the Discord chat later? I will not be joining you later, Captain Prices, I am afraid. My voice is still on recovery. And tomorrow I have to read all of the podcasts for the podcast that goes out every week. I missed this week's one. If I miss next week's one, the Web Goblin will take away my nice new shiny camera. So there is that. For that, I do thank you for the invitation, however. Lyciter says, will you be reviewing the submissions only on Sundays? Yes, I will be reviewing them only on Sundays. And of course, you can watch these videos later on. You don't have to watch them during the live show. DR Theory says, at what time would your new Patreon game be? I think I set the time at 7 p.m. 6 p.m. GMT. 6 p.m. GMT. It's not live broadcast. It's just for us to play. I will be recording it and possibly releasing it as a teaching method later on. There's some idea that a friend of mine suggested was that we play the game, we have fun whilst playing it, and then we release the video. And then we all get together and we release a second video where the players and the GM are kind of doing like a director's commentary, where it's like the GM is saying, well, this is what my plan was. And the players are going, what? Really? That's what we were thinking. We were thinking that was this and it was that. I don't know if that would be fun or not, but maybe it's something to do. That's that question. The Tenshi Tobias says, gonna take over the torch as GM tomorrow. Fantastic. And having the session 0 and character creation. Awesome. What would be the 3 most important aspects to focus on, as this will be a short campaign, 2 months? Okay, well, I would say the most important thing is, what is it the guys want to play? What type of theme genre? What are their expectations? And then I would make sure to focus that they all start knowing each other and with good relations with one another. So I would do that straight up. Definitely do that. Because it's a short campaign, they need to start knowing each other. These Star Wars characters are all going to start, but they're all going to know each other. Trust me. Okay, GM Brightside said, will you play in my one-shot? That's very kind of you. But currently, I already play in 2 games, and now I will be running 3 games myself. So I generally don't participate in other people's one-shots. Otherwise, I would be flooded, and then it would become unfair. So, but thank you for the invitation, nonetheless. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to have to talk to somebody about this Goblin Redemption stuff, because it doesn't pop up when someone does buy a Goblin. I thought it would keep track. It does not seem to keep track. We may have a small problem with the Goblins. I am not, however, concerned, because it has been fun collecting them, yes? So we will see what happens later. But for now, I think it is that it's time for me to go before I get myself into any more trouble. So there we are. All right, last question. Kid Frost 109 says, what is your advice for a session 0 for an expected long campaign? Pretty much the same advice that I had for a short-term campaign. You want the players to start by knowing each other. All this nonsense, this fiddle-faddle, diddle-daddle about, oh, my player doesn't know your player, and I'm not going to work with your player unless you commit. Oh, balls. Just start playing the damn game. You're there to play together as a team. You might as well start as a team. Unless there's a very specific reason for them not to start as a team. But yeah, that's certainly what I would do in a session 0 is find out what they expect. What do they want? Do they want the characters to grow or be static? Horror, get the genre down. I have made several videos. Kid Frost, you can go and check out my other YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/how to be a great game master. All one long word, how to be a great game master. And there's the voice starting to go already. But you can find the videos there on how to run a great session 0 and the like. Anyway, that's it from me. As I said, Kid Frost was the last question I'll be taking tonight. We're already half an hour over. That's my fault entirely. I do thank you all for joining me this Sunday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been great. I wish you all a great evening. And until next time, I wish you all the very happiest of playing.